Broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Here's your host, Andrew Romanella.
Okay? Just get the hell out of here. Nobody cares what you think if you're not a Mets fan.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a Thursday edition of The Rome Show, broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitter X, Instagram, and Facebook. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. We got you for the next 25 or 30 minutes, slightly earlier start to the show today, like we've been doing during the start of preseason baseball. But that doesn't mean we're still not giving you all the things you need to be up to date and locked on the top stories in the sports world, which we'll do today because the NBA trade deadline ends today at 2 p.m. And we had a flurry of deals continue to come through yesterday. Plus, the National Hockey League put their games and rosters on freeze starting yesterday all the way through February 22nd at the end of the Milan Cortina Olympics. So a few deals, especially over here in the metropolitan area, that happened before the roster freeze for the Olympics. And then if we have time, I'd like to start breaking down a little bit of the Super Bowl on Sunday. And I'd really like to talk about the two quarterbacks that we'll be seeing in Sam Darnold and Drake May. If you want to get in on the action, be sure to be watching on youtube.com/the Romanellas. That's youtube.com/the Romanellas. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. The subscriptions are huge for the program. So youtube.com/the Romanellas for all your latest Rome Show content on the YouTube, Twitter X, and Instagram. The Rome Show 1, Twitter X, and Instagram. The Rome Show 1, that's The Rome Show. Then the number 1, follow on both sites, ogfacebook.com/The Rome Show. Megan's here, and she's fired up. She writes in, let's go Seahawks. Let's go Kraken. 4-2 against the Kings. Megan and the Seattle fans, a very exciting weekend heading into Super Bowl 60. Funny that Meg writes in from down under about the Los Angeles Kings because yesterday the New York Rangers traded the man that has led their team in goals for 5 of the last 7 years in Artemi Panarin. Okay, so Panarin traded before the roster freeze yesterday from the New York Rangers to the Los Angeles Kings. Okay. The Rangers receive a conditional 3rd-round pick in 2026, a conditional 4th-round pick in 2028, and some dude named Liam Greentree, who I believe is a 20-year-old prospect currently playing right now in the OHL. The Rangers also retain 50% of Artemi Panarin's contract. So you might be saying to yourself as a Rangers fan, what the hell are we doing here? Okay, I know we Chris Drury sent out a letter a few weeks ago. We are obviously sitting in last place in the Eastern Conference right now. Okay, it does not look good for the Rangers heading into the second half of the season, and it felt increasingly like they could be sellers, not buyers, at the deadline. Rumors for Panarin have been circling for the last few weeks. The problem is, prior to Chris Drury becoming the general manager of the New York Rangers, the then general manager, Jeff Gordon, signed Panarin in 2019 to a contract extension. That contract extension included a no trade clause, okay? And see, this is where the issue falls. Because when you get to the scenario of later on down the line, Artemi Panarin becomes a trade piece for the New York Rangers to help them propel into a better place for their franchise, because you gave him a no trade clause in 2019, which felt right. It felt like you needed to do it. Sometimes there are leverages that the player has that can allow him to get unnecessarily, if you ask me, if I give you my opinion. But the no trade clause in professional sports is a very interesting situation to navigate, because a franchise is going to give out a no trade clause to a player to make them feel loved. A franchise is going to give a no trade clause to a player to make them feel like this is your franchise. You need to be here. Look, we care so much about you being here. We'll never trade you. We'll even put that in your contract. Well, when it gets to the point of, I might have to trade this player, and by the way, that happens with a whole lot more players than it doesn't, you have to go to that player and say, where do you want to go? Because they can deny now any trade. So Artemi Panarin comes to Chris Drury and he says, hey, man, I would like to go to the Los Angeles Kings. And it's like, oh, really? Yes. So when the Kings call and Chris Drury's like, hey, man, listen, we got Panarin. He wants to be a King. What do you got? And they say Green Tree, a third conditional and a fourth conditional in 2028. Plus, you got to keep 50% of the salary. If you're Chris Drury and you respond with absolutely not, they're going to laugh you off the phone. And that goes for any general manager that is working to trade a player with a no trade clause. That is the purpose of the no trade clause. They get to control their destiny. And I got to be honest with you. I can't think of many athletes at all in my lifetime that I'm like, that guy was worth a no trade clause. I mean, obvious ones, right? Like a Michael Jordan, a Ken Griffey Jr. Like guys of that caliber are worth a no trade clause. But when you really break down what a no trade clause does to a franchise, especially if the player you give the no trade clause to does not help produce a championship or become a superstar among superstars. Panarin, really good New York Ranger. Nothing negative to say about him. Just one of those scenarios where, was he the guy in your franchise, if anyone deserved to receive a no trade clause? Was it that guy? And that's the question your general manager and your upper franchise owners, whatever, hockey operations, depending on how you have your organization set up, those are the decisions they have to make. But a no trade clause, something that I would truly stay away from. The New Jersey Devils, okay, they also made a trade. So both New York teams making deals. The Devils, they traded they get Nick Bjugstad. Probably saying that wrong. Bjugstad, one of those, from the Blues. This was a free agent signing for the Blues in the offseason. This is nothing spectacular for the Devils. He's only got 7 points in 35 games. They are just starting to use some of that money that was given to them or they received from the Palat trade. So that's what's happening in the National Hockey League, in the National Basketball Association. We talked about the bunch of these yesterday, but I got a list of trades that happened yesterday. And again, we still got some time. John Morant rumors are circulating. The Memphis Grizzlies look like they are going on a complete overhaul. We've been talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jaren Jackson Jr. was already traded from that aforementioned Memphis Grizzlies team. We mentioned that one yesterday. So here's what happened on February 4th as the NBA trade deadline continues to heat up. Anthony Davis again traded, this time from the Dallas Mavericks to the Washington Wizards. How about that? A year ago, at this time, we were all screaming our faces off because the then general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, Nico Harrison, traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis and some other stuff. That was arguably one of the worst trades I've ever witnessed in NBA history. Okay. Nico Harrison has since lost his job, and the Dallas Mavericks, though drafting Cooper Flagg #1 overall, have not necessarily showed much promise in terms of being in the Western Conference Finals just 2 years ago with Luka Doncic leading the charge. So Anthony Davis on the move again. He's going to the rebuilding Wizards. That's a far cry from competing with LeBron James in Los Angeles for presumably championships every year. I use quotes with that presumably because they did not really reach that true potential outside of the 2020 COVID season. Nonetheless, what we just talked about in the NHL with the no trade clause reigns true in every sport with moves from a general manager. See, what happens is the general manager has the seat, okay? And they make the decisions on the players, on the trades, on the contracts, on what goes on the coaching staff. But the problem is most general managers, most hockey operations, head of football operations, whatever the title is, most of those guys are not making decisions for necessarily the longest term health of the franchise, okay? They're making decisions for their moment in time, for their flash pan in that franchise. You're not getting Brian Cashman, 25 plus years as a general manager. You're not getting that. You're not getting Moneyball in Oakland, 30 years as a general manager. You're not getting that. That is so few and far between. And so these general managers, these decision makers in these organizations, they make decisions that are not going to help the team really, or they think it's going to, and they don't care about the repercussions down the line if it doesn't work. So now, does it matter that Nico Harrison traded Luka Doncic? Yeah, to the Dallas Mavericks fans and to the owner of the Mavericks. But Nico Harrison, though he lost his job and that was the start of his downfall, Nico Harrison's good, man. He can go try and get another job. He can go do whatever the hell he wants to do. And now the Mavericks could be set up for failure for the next decade. Because just a year after having arguably the best player in the league, just 2 years after arguably the best player in your league took you to the Western Conference Finals, actually the NBA Finals, 2 years after that, you're blowing this entire thing up. Less than a year after that major trade, you're blowing this entire thing up. General managers, decision makers, and organizations, they make decisions that do not care about the long-term impact. Another example, hey, we'll trade you a 2035 first-round pick. Is that a joke? Like, that's wild. I'm pretty positive in one of these trades, someone got traded for a 2032 first-round pick. What? Well, yeah, because 7 years down the line, this general manager does not care about that pick. And if he's still here to make that pick, probably something went really right. Or he's got a terrible owner, but mostly went really right for him to still have his job. But we're trading away picks from 9 years from now. Why? Because it doesn't matter for the general manager making the decision right now. That's only going to affect the franchise long term. Kristaps Porzingis is on the move again. He's heading to the Golden State Warriors. The Hawks, they will receive Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield. The Boston Celtics were also in this. Obviously, that's where Kristaps Porzingis came from. Lonzo Ball, he's out in Cleveland. He is now in Utah, but Utah's about to release him so he can become an unrestricted free agent. Tyus Jones, he's headed to the Orlando Magic. This one's funny. Chris Paul. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers this story, but on December 1st, Chris Paul was sent home from the Los Angeles Clippers. Why? We don't know. But they released a statement saying Chris Paul is not going to be with the Los Angeles Clippers anymore. And 2 months later, he gets traded to the Toronto Raptors, who said he will not have to report to the team. Don't believe Chris Paul's going to play in the league again, but he's in the midst of major trade happening. Kobe White, Mike Conley Jr. to the Hornets in exchange for Colin Sexton to the Bulls. And then Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's a big one. On his way from the 76ers. Like I said before, the trade deadline ends today at 2 p.m. I love love when the NBA is like this. The NBA is rather boring in some lights, especially to a lot of people, but it is rather boring in some lights during the regular season. But when stuff like this happens, you got a major amount of movement. I mentioned it on the show yesterday, the Rome Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast, just head over there. It makes it so much better when there's parity in this league. And we talked about the 22 teams that are technically in play-in or playoff contention right now on both sides of the fence. Megan writes, Kraken in the third in the Pacific Division, and the Thunder, you mean the Seattle Supersonics. It's funny you say that, Megan, because I only became a Thunder fan because Kevin Durant at the time, who was my favorite basketball player coming out of Texas, got drafted by the Seattle Supersonics. Got to get myself a Seattle Supersonics jersey. On Instagram, Jake Keenan 26 writes in, Jeff Stoutland shenanigans is blasphemy. Sounds like my Philadelphia Eagles fans are not too happy with the Philadelphia Eagles new hire. So we'll have to see. We'll have to get some information on that. We'll break that down for you tomorrow. He was the offensive lines coach for the Eagles, and he said he is stepping away amid offseason major changes in Philadelphia. This is an offensive line coach that has produced one of the best offensive lines in the National Football League over the course of the last 6 to 10 years. We're going to take a quick commercial break, talk to you on the backside here, staying with the Seattle theme, Meg, so you better stay with us. It's Super Bowl 60 on Sunday, and we should start breaking it down. Andrew Romanella, The Rome Show, back after this.
What is one thing every great leader has in common? They challenge their people to not stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is a leadership book that will teach you how to move past the first right answer with entertaining and detailed examples founded in real-world concepts and experiences. Accelerate towards your professional goals with Tighten the Lug Nuts, one of the best leadership books available.
Yeah, the Rome Show. Welcome back in. Andrew Romanella. It's a Thursday, February 5th, 2026. 708, state of New Jersey. Electric stuff out of the people today. Megan's locked. Jake's locked. I love write-ins. YouTube.com/the Romanellas if you want to get in on the action. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hey, listen, even if you're not a YouTube person, maybe you're not necessarily I go on YouTube to watch stuff. I love it. I watch a lot of my radio shows on YouTube. My fiance watches some vlogs and stuff on YouTube. It's awesome. But if you're not a YouTube person, it's okay. All we're asking for is a little support. Just go ahead, head over to YouTube. Okay. Sign yourself in with your Gmail. Pretty simple stuff. Almost everyone has one of those. And then just type in the Romanellas and hit subscribe. That's all we need. If we can get that from every person, you don't even have to go on the YouTube and watch the Romanellas channel. But the subscription really does matter. Same thing with the Rome Show on Twitter X and Instagram. Be sure to follow us there, and on Facebook.com/The Rome Show. Before the commercial break, we mentioned talking Super Bowl matchups. Today, we are breaking down Drake May and Sam Darnold. That's the quarterback matchup for the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday. We are going to turn the music back on, and we are going to get this cooking with a 3-minute drill on quarterbacks. First, we start with the New England Patriots. Drake May. Drake May had an excellent season in his sophomore year. He finished the year 4th in the NFL with 4,394 passing yards. He was top 4 in the league in touchdowns with 37, and he only threw 8 interceptions on the season. Elite level efficiency from a completion standpoint at 72%. He also was very efficient in terms of releasing the football, 8.9 yards per pass with that efficiency is really good. He had a 113.5 QB rating, and that is a key for the Patriots. Their offense in these 3 victories leading you to the Super Bowl has not felt like an offense that has a quarterback producing those numbers. A lot of that has to do with the defense of the Seattle Seahawks, which we'll get to in a second. Drake May has to make sure he can flush himself out of that pocket with his legs. Super athletic dude. No turnovers. Don't take stupid sacks. I mean, he was only sacked 47 times throughout this season. Not an insanely low number, but not a high number. Okay? Don't take sacks. Don't turn the football over. And use those legs. I think Drake May, rushing touchdown prop, hammer it. How about Sam Darnold on the other side? Did something in the last 2 years that no quarterback has done with 2 different teams in a really long time, and that's win 14-plus games. On the season, Sam Darnold, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 67.7% completion percentage, averaging 8.5 yards per pass attempt, averaging 238 yards per game, a 99.1 QB rating. When you look at the numbers, okay, the better quarterback throughout the season was Drake May. When you look at the postseason, the better quarterback has been Sam Darnold, including his 346-yard, 3-touchdown performance against the Los Angeles Rams last week. So who do we give the nod to? Okay, because it's going to come down to these 2 dudes making plays somewhere in this game. You do not win a Super Bowl without your quarterback making plays. And in this Super Bowl, you have a sophomore quarterback who you believe can be MVP quality, okay? And then you have a retread quarterback who you don't know if what you're watching is absolutely what it is or is not. These 2 dudes are going to be a key focal point in this game. Well, how do we figure out, right, where we're at? Like, what's going to happen? Well, tomorrow we're going to break down the defenses for both of these teams, because these 2 teams arguably have the best defenses in the league, and now they're matching up in the Super Bowl. The last thing I'll say before my fastest 3 minutes ends is there's really no head coaching advantage here between McDonald and Vrabel. I got to be honest with you. I want to give the nod to McDonald in Seattle for 2 reasons. The first one is the underwhelming belief from people to his team, both his first year of last year and his second year of this year. But then secondly, what he has done with Sam Darnold. I mean, this is a guy that was drafted and thrown to the streets by the Jets, benched by the Carolina Panthers, was the backup on the San Francisco 49ers. The Minnesota Vikings thought that J.J. McCarthy was better after what he did last year for them. And yet, Mike McDonald got the most out of this player that you've ever seen. Who manages their timeouts better? Who can, in the most important moment, decide the 4th down's the right decision or the field goal's the right decision? I love Vrabel. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league, but for some reason, this McDonald cat and this Seattle Seahawks team gives me that belief. So I'm going to give the quarterbacking edge to Drake May because the totality of the season. But I'm going to give the coaching edge to the Seattle Seahawks. We'll break down the defenses and wide receiver groups of those teams tomorrow. Thank you for tuning into the Rome Show here on a Thursday. If you missed some of the show, youtube.com/the Romanellas will have it for the rest of the day, or the Rome Show podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. To finish, Mike Mack joined the Seahawks 2 years ago yesterday. Thank you, Megan, for that tidbit. I appreciate Jake. I appreciate Megan. I appreciate everyone that writes into the show. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, to give you our predictions on the Super Bowl, talk defenses, talk wide receivers, and talk all things sports. Andrew Romanella, the Rome Show. Until tomorrow, you have an electric day. Peace.
Thank you for listening.